of the Utilities Commission. And with me this morning are the following commissioners: Jeffrey A. Hughes, Floyd B. McKissick Jr., William M. Brawley, Wyatt T. Tucker, and Stephen J. Levitas. In compliance with the State Government Ethics Act, I remind members of the commission of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest and inquire as to whether any member of the commission has a known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the commission this morning. Okay. Seeing no conflicts, we will proceed with public staff item number 1.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Eric Fernandez, an engineer with the Public Staff's Energy Division. Item 1 consists of a CPCN for a solar PV electric generating facility and registration for a new renewable energy facility filed by Tanglewood Solar LLC. The Public Staff has reviewed the application and determined that it meets the requirements of NCGS 62-110.1A and Commission Rules RA-64. Further, the registration statement contains the certified attestations required by Commission Rule RA-66B. Therefore, the Public Staff recommends that the Commission issue the requested certificate and approve the registration. Thank you.
I'll move approval.
It's been moved and seconded that the item be approved as recommended by the Public Staff. Are there any questions or discussion from the commissioners?
Question, this is North Carolina Co-op, right? On this one?
Yes, it will be connected to NCMC through Albemarle.
Okay, just my only question is there been any thought process or requirement for additional transmission lines to connect to the 8-megawatt solar?
This will be connected to distribution.
Who pays for that?
The company is here for questions if we want to get into more detail.
Okay.
No, I don't need to, I just need to know who. If you don't know, I'm fine with that.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, is there a representative from the company who would like to answer the question? Please come forward. Mhm. Thank you. And can you tell us your name and the company you're with, please?
Yeah. My name is Jason Nemeth. I'm with Headwater Energy.
Question is who pays for the connection to the solar farm?
Yes, Commissioner. We pay for the connection.
Developer.
Yes.
Okay, very well. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for being here today. Are there any further questions or discussion from the commission? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. So we will now proceed with public staff item number 2.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sashi Bhatta, engineer with the Public Staff Water, Sewer, and Telephone, Transportation and Telephone Division. Item number 2 is docket number W1165 sub 8. On March 10th, 2025, the Public Staff filed a petition for the appointment of Carolina Water Service of North Carolina as emergency operator for the wastewater utility system serving the village at Ocean Hill subdivision in Currituck County, North Carolina, and requesting approval of increased rates on a provisional basis, subject to true-up. In addition, the Public Staff requested that the $30,000 bond posted for the system be declared forfeited and that the funds be disbursed to the emergency operator as a contribution in aid of construction. The Public Staff recommends that the Commission issue the proposed order.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I have a couple of questions, and there may be some other questions from the commissioners. My first question, if you know, is finding of fact 23 states that Mr. Freed, Bill Freed, on behalf of Envirotech, has consented to the appointment of an EO in writing. I was looking back through the dockets, and I wasn't able to find that letter. Do you know which docket that letter was filed in? If you know.
Let me check if it has been filed. I know we have received it in the Public Staff, but I don't know if it has been filed.
Chuck Junis, Public Staff. So the consent letter should be filed as Exhibit 6 to the motion. And that's subject to check on the exhibit number, but I'm pretty sure it's Exhibit 6.
Okay, thank you. I may have missed it. And Mr. Junis, I have a couple of other questions as well. I was looking back through some additional dockets, and it was my understanding that Envirotech had been sold to EnviroLink back in 2021. So I was confused about Envirotech still being the owner of this utility because it was my understanding that EnviroLink had now acquired Envirotech.
Yeah, this is our fun names to deal with here. So it's my understanding that William Freed Operating Company was the contract operating company, and they did business as Envirotech. That is what it was sold to EnviroLink. And so then EnviroLink took over the operations company that was previously owned by Mr. Freed. Envirotech, the utility company, is separate and was not sold to EnviroLink, is my understanding. Unfortunately, Mr. Freed intended to be here. I think he's still trying to make his way into the building. Unfortunately, he suffered a tire blowout on his way here from Ocean Hill. So he could possibly add some more context, but that is my understanding of the entity sales.
He is apparently upstairs waiting to get in the building, so he's here. He should be in the commission room.
Okay. And can you step forward and identify yourself, please? Mhm.
Elizabeth Hedrick with Fox Rothschild, representing Envirotech.
Okay. And so I have a couple of additional questions. How many systems does Envirotech still own as the utility? Are there additional systems that may be coming before the commission that we need to be looking out for or concerned about?
My understanding is this is the last one.
And then, Mr. Junis, I think this is probably a question for you. Under finding of fact number 14, it says that EnviroLink has been operating the system since November of 2016. Does a public staff or anyone have some additional information that they can provide about EnviroLink's operation and how we got to this state with EnviroLink and Envirotech owning the system?
So,
Go ahead.
okay. So as described before, you had the William Freed Operating Company that was sold to EnviroLink. And so that positioned EnviroLink to be the contract operator. And then Envirotech still owned the utility. This all kind of came about, or at least to the commission's attention and the public staff's, when we were dealing with the Yingai Woods situation, because it became apparent that Envirotech, the utility, was appointed the emergency operator, but in fact, when the operating company sold, EnviroLink took over as the contract operator and sort of as the emergency operator. So similar scenario here with EnviroLink taking over the operations, and the state of the system and then the current operations warranted the appointment of an emergency operator. And I believe we have Mr. Freed, and so he might be able to add some context.
Okay.
Okay. And Mr. Freed, can you come forward and just identify yourself for the record, please?
Bill Freed, William Freed,
Okay.
Envirotech of North Carolina, Inc.
Okay, well, thank you for being here today. And Mr. Junis, one additional question, just to be clear for the record, Envirotech is owned by Mr. Freed, who is here. EnviroLink is owned by Michael Myers. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Not entirely.
Okay, would you
Okay.
please explain?
And I never intended for it to be confusing. Envirotech, which was a DBA, William G. Freed Incorporated, was a service company that serviced a multitude of public utilities, water and sewer. Envirotech of North Carolina, Inc. is the public utility that owns Villages of Ocean Hill system. Separate entities entirely. EnviroLink purchased William G. Freed, Inc., DBA Envirotech.
Mhm.
It gets confusing in legal documents because they like to do the whole name first and then Envirotech, and then that gets confused with Envirotech, the DBA.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Junis, just to be clear for the record, EnviroLink is the operator. It is not currently a public utility. Is that the current status?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think we're going really down into the weeds, but I just wanted to make sure that the record was clear. Are there any questions from the commissions? Commissioner Tucker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Freed, thank you for being here. Could you explain not entirely what you just stated about the marriage between EnviroTech and EnviroLink? When they said Mr. Myers owns EnviroLink and you said not entirely, define that for me, please.
Well, I don't know who owns EnviroLink, but I am not part of that in any way, shape, or form. Michael Myers purchased, or EnviroLink purchased William G. Freed, Inc., DBA EnviroTech, the operation and service company, February 21.
So he owns all of this.
No.
It's just confusing in legal documents, but it's certainly confusing in what you're sharing with me. I'm
And
sorry.
it was not intended to be.
I understand that.
EnviroTech of North Carolina, Inc. is a public utility and the company that owns Villages of Ocean Hill Sewer System, and it is a standalone company. not
And you
a-
own that.
And I own that entire.
Okay. So what did Mr. Myers' company purchase from you?
The service company, William G. Freed, Inc., DBA EnviroTech, which operated 120 some sewer systems from 500,000 gallons a day to single family
And that was a service company.
service company, contract operator. Yes,
So Myers has nothing to do with this
No.
situation we're in
He does-
today,
it
right?
does not, other than they're the contract operator.
Okay. All right. Let me think here. I had a couple other things. Chuck, about my feeling about DEQ and the efforts with DEQ. And if I recall correctly, out of the reading, September 20th, 24, public staff and DEQ made an inspection.
January 3rd, 2025 is the public staff's inspection with the
Okay.
DEQ staff.
And,
Just
since,
DEQ did the inspection in September 2024.
okay, so September 2024, it was verified that no improvements had been made. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. DEQ has issued approximately 50 notices of violations and 15 civil penalties.
Correct.
Okay, and that was in 21, and we're in 25. Between 21 and 25, what investigation did the public staff do about this system and or the financial status of Mr. Freed and the equipment that was not being maintained?
So I can tell you that the DEQ had issued violations based on the monitoring results that they were getting from the operator, the system's compliance. And also the monthly reports were not being filed properly, or they were either late or missing. So DEQ would continue to issue violations and see if, the other thing to point out, I'm sorry, let me take you back. So this system does not have a valid discharge permit. It expired in 2019. And first, EnviroTech did submit documents to renew the permit. Because of the drain field issues, because EnviroTech does not own the high infiltration area that the treated wastewater is disposed at, and there may be other issues, but that was the main one, that it did not have the deed or the easement to discharge its waste. And also the area that it's supposed to have for disposal has been reduced from 20,000 square foot to 4,600 square foot. That's where the discharge is being discharged now. That's the area of it. So with other issues, that was the main one, that the permit could not be renewed. So finally, in 2023, August, I believe, DEQ issued a moratorium on the system, basically citing not being able to renew the permit and having all these violations issues in terms of not operating the wastewater treatment facility properly and exceeding the different limits on the treated wastewater. So we came to know about this system after, was it after we knew of the moratorium that was issued by DEQ?
So this is sort of the opening of the floodgates of information from DEQ. You know, we're in sort of catch-up mode. We're playing triage on some of these systems. We're taking the worst first, and then working our way down. Working with the regional office on other systems, this one came up in conversation. I then pushed for, well, when you have your next compliance inspection, and if there's a violation or a report stemming from that, please send that to us. David May sent it, I think it was the next day. Upon receipt, then we started talking internally of, okay, what is the state of compliance? What is the financial situation? And set up then the January compliance inspection. So then public staff could put their eyes on the system. And that's when we started to formulate the motion for emergency operator. And then I started to reach out to Mr. Freed on what is a path forward and would he consent to the appointment of emergency operator?
Okay, well then, when did this was January 1st, 2021 on the non-compliance. When did public staff get involved in this?
I would say it was brought to our attention last year in 24 as we were working on other systems. And then it was a matter of being able to throw manpower at it to formulate a motion and move forward.
Well, you know where I'm going with this. There's 3 years elapsed. And Mr. Freed was doing his best, I guess, to keep the system up and running, deal with DEQ, and you guys did not know this situation was coming up. And again, my point is DEQ needs to have the ability to give you the information in a prompt period of time where you can respond rather than waiting 3 years and us ending up in this situation.
Yes, sir. And I just want to remind folks that, you know, I took over my role in January of 22. We were sort of drinking out of a fire hose with just sort of me in a new role. You had then the multi-year, you then had the statutory change, we put a time deadline on transfers and CPCNs. And so we had a whole host of deadlines to meet. And then also we were creating new points of contact. I'm trying now to get information to the staff that I've kind of built up over time. And so those relationships changed. We had a lot of turnover in the public staff. And so now I feel like we're really making progress with DEQ, opening up that information and hopefully, based on recent conversations, creating a systematic exchange of information with DEQ.
Okay. You know, the EOs really concern me. It is a great deal of effort on the public staff's part and our part to have to deal with these. And of course, when you've got a few hundred people that don't have water and sewer, they're going to be calling their politicians. And then that's their first line. And then they're going to end up, it's going to be the commission's fault, not public staff's fault, but the commission's fault that this is the issue that comes up. I can assure you that's the way it'll play out. And of course, I'm pushing for the opportunity to have the information you need in a more prompt manner with you and Ms. Frida. So we can move forward there. But I mean, 50 NOVs and 15 civil penalties, and you guys didn't have a clue, right? In 21, so it's 24 when we got to it, right?
I can only speak to my knowledge. I was not aware of this.
Well, that's all I need.
21.
You're the heavy hitter here. So, you know, I would ask you, let me just ask one obvious question to me. Taking nothing away from Carolina Water Service. I don't know what we do without them and others when we get into this emergency operations period. But when we get into a situation like this, what position does that place the public staff and the commission to get in agreement? Meaning that, we're kind of between a place and a hard rock, and not that Carolina Water Service would take advantage of that, but you guys are trying to come to some sort of solution because your charge is to serve the public, and that's what you do. But where does that leave us? I mean, in my business, I would probably, if I was called in on a situation like that, I would probably be able to fudge margins, to realize, the effort and the amount of work it's going to take. I know that you've got all these stipulations and agreements, but Carolina Water Service is going to be able to recover whatever they spend, and we don't know what that is yet. All those things, what position does that leave us as a body dealing with Carolina Water Service or any other entity?
So our emergency operators are required to file quarterly reports. They are also subject to true up. So when they are relieved as an emergency operator, there is a full financial review to true up what were the costs they incurred and what were the revenues they received, and did they receive the compensation that was agreed to in the terms and conditions of the emergency operator. I would say, Carolina Water is stepping into a situation that is quite challenging. There is compliance issues, there is staffing issues, there is likely deferred maintenance and investment in plant. And so I think they are truly doing a service to North Carolinians. It does put us in a challenging situation, but we rise to that challenge to get a solution between a current owner, an emergency operator, the environmental regulator, and then you all to have a plan to move forward for better service, more reliable service.
Well, Carolina Water has done a great job in the past with the EO situation, as well as the public staff. It's just, again, my position is that we need to be more preemptive here before we get to this situation. But, if you guys are comfortable with the rates that's going to be charged, all the upgrades are going to be, if Carolina Water Service has to spend $1 million getting this up to par, then that's going to be in the next rate case, right? Because you're giving them the absolute right to recover whatever their expenditures are. Is that correct?
So, couple points there. We are targeting the potential for regionalization here and cost efficiency. Carolina Water is already thinking about that to try to limit costs. And then regards to recovery, as an emergency operator, this is sort of a standalone bucket. This is not in their rate cases. Now, if they were to acquire this system and it were consolidated into their uniform customer base, it would be in a rate case. But as of right now, this system would not be in their upcoming rate case. And to the issue of rates, we are trying to take a more anticipatory actions there. We've already spoken to the HOA president and vice president to make them aware of this emergency operator and the rise in rates. The rates here are 75% of the uniform. So we're trying to take that incremental approach, hearing the comments of the commissioners about concerns about rate shock. So we're trying to do this better each and every time we do it.
Okay. One question then, in this situation, would it be helpful if the General Assembly was to set aside some monies at a low interest rate for emergency operations where Carolina Water, Aqua, whoever the folks are, that they could borrow that money on a long-term basis at a low interest rate to help the ratepayers recover from whatever's required to get the system back up and within compliance?
So speaking for myself, and I think it would be supported by public staff leadership, funding it would be helpful. Obviously, grants would be amazing. Low interest loans, though, still have a benefit to customers. It's a lower cost. So Yes, absolutely. We would
I'm
support
sure the
taking
grant
this.
wouldn't be palatable to the General Assembly, but I think that a low interest loan would be something they could look to because, you know, they probably have some difficulty loaning money to a for-profit entity, whomever it is. Just got to overcome those issues in this session to try to get to this point. But I mean, it really puts us in a tough spot. And it puts Carolina Water in a tough spot and the customers even in a more tough spot. So if we can move forward with your relationship with DEQ and get dialed in on promptly receiving the information through their data in a format that you can understand, and then you can put eyes on the street, or you know, you can look at financial statements, you can find out where they are. Nothing against you, Mr. Freed. I've hit the wall before in business too. So it's a difficult situation on you, and I understand that. But Chuck, you know what I'm after and what you needs to do to try to help you and the commission get this done. So I appreciate you answering those questions, and you know, again, appreciate Carolina Water taking it over, because if we don't, all of us commissioners will be receiving calls from that area from their politicians, and it's going to be our fault. And I want to do what I can to not allow that to happen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. And I just want to note that Mr. Denton with Carolina Water is here, and we do appreciate Carolina Water yet again stepping in as emergency operator. And I believe that there's a question from Commissioner McKissick.
And Chuck, I want to thank you and the public staff for bringing forward the petition to appoint the emergency operator and doing the inspection back in January and identifying those items that were deficient as a result of that inspection. It went from alphabet A to alphabet O. I mean, a lot of items that were appropriately identified. The thing that comes to my mind in listening to not just this case, but other cases, you know, when you look at these 50 notices of violation, and all the civil penalties, everything else is over at DEQ. I mean, I don't know if they're statutorily allowed to do it or whether they have some type of list of what I would call ineligible operators. Okay. I mean, there's analogous situation in the federal government, say with HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development. But as a result of contractors failing to follow through on their obligations, failing to perform, they have a list of operators or contractors in that case that are ineligible to bid on other contracts with HUD. Now, it occurs to me that I've seen a number of these companies now that have these lengthy histories of non-compliance, are not going out there and getting a permit to even function or operate with, or renewing it in an appropriate way. Is there anything analogous to that over at DEQ where, I mean, they can go out there and say, we because of the history, because of the performance, because of the oversights and omissions and neglect, this company isn't suitable in its present form to function and operate these systems in the state of North Carolina, or something that gives you advance notice over here at the public staff as to what's going on before you have to go out there and exercise all the due diligence, as you have, to find out what is occurring with not just this system, but with so many others that we see where emergency operators are eventually the ultimate remedy to these types of circumstances.
So there is the operator certification board. They can investigate operators if there is suspicion of, you know, inaction or bad service, to say as simply as possible. They can revoke a person's certification. It's my understanding, talking to members of that board that are located in the regional offices, that it is more challenging on like a company basis. There would have to be evidence that they are essentially directing those individual operators to act in that way. To my knowledge, that has not happened before, but it is within the certification board's toolbox. And perhaps some of these issues brought to light and investigated further would warrant that. So we try to pass any information we receive to DEQ and ultimately through that certification board if we have concerns. But as of yet, that has not happened on a company basis.
Got it. And so the certification board is there. It sounds as if they have potentially tools in the toolbox to address it, but they've been, at this point in time, they've not taken any types of actions to do so. Is that fair to say?
Not on a company, to my
Not on a
knowledge.
company.
I have heard of situations where operators have had their licenses revoked.
Got it. Well, it's just that in listening to this case and so many others that come before us, I would like to see that entity, that certification board, perhaps get more active and engaged. And if they need to have some other authority, then perhaps, that's something that can be brought to the attention of those who can grant it. But, I commend Carolina Water for coming in. They've done an excellent job in the past in taking on these type of systems as emergency operators, as is Aqua. So, I want to thank you all for taking on and rescuing these systems, but we just got to come up with a better way so they don't get to this point where they need emergency operators.
Yes, sir. I hear you and Commissioner Tucker. We are trying to do better. We are trying to sort of leverage the toolboxes that DEQ has, that you all have, to better serve North Carolinians and hopefully get to a point where we can do preventative care and avoid these situations entirely.
And I commend you on the job that you do. I understand how challenging it is and under the present circumstances. So I commend you and I think it's great that we're going ahead and taking this action now.
Okay, Commissioner Hughes.
Yeah, thank you. So trying to untangle water system management, as you know, Mr. Junis, can be really challenging. I just want to make sure I understand everything and kind of clarify for the record. So we have a system owner who only owns part of what they need to. Is that what correct? So we have another organization that owns part of what is needed to successfully operate this. Do I get that right, Mr. Freed?
Yes.
Okay, and
The property was permitted under the operation permit for the system. The owner was supposed to give us a perpetual easement for disposal. Yeah, we're working on it. Another year goes by, his attorney, yeah, we're working on it. Yeah, we're working on it. 5 years go by. And then 15 years go by and somebody says, oh, the statute of limitations on that run out. There's nothing you can do about it. They are offering a 20,000 square foot easement, which I've not signed on because I don't know where the system is going. So I think there's an opportunity to work something out with the people that own that property. I just am not in a position to do it.
okay, well, I just want to itemize everything before you can comment, Mr. Junis, on all these different things. So we have your company. This is a private landowner that owns this.
Yep.
Okay, so we have this private landowner.
Actually, it's his heir. He passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two. We have the contract operator, which is EnviroLink, current contract. We have a designated emergency operator, Carolina Water. We have DEQ. We have a homeowners association that is somehow involved. And I know, Mr. Junis, you said you've been in contact with them. Mr. Freed, I don't know how often they've played a role in your business over the years. No. Okay. And then, so the only probably other groups, but the county. Okay, could somebody tell me a little bit about where the county, these are county taxpayers. I'm assuming that there's some permitting that occurred. Some counties played some role, not maybe in the DEQ, not in the system permitting, but in having people live there. Could you tell me where they are? They have a water sewer system, as far as I understand. where are they as far as like, let's divide this responsibility up. Now, I think we're up to 5 or 6 groups, public staff as well. Where's the county in all this?
The county's the water provider. They're not involved in the sewer here, but they have multiple sewer systems throughout the county.
So to answer my question, where's the county in all this? So they caused the problem by providing water to this system. They have sewer systems there. Where is the county in this?
They're not participating. They don't want to because they've been an abstract failure in providing sewer service. They've just absolutely failed. I ended up with this system because it was in moratorium for, I don't recall exactly how many years, but for a while, in 2002, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. And at that point in time, the county didn't want anything to do with sewer. They wanted to build a water system and they wanted to be in the water business. They didn't want anything to do with sewer. And so there was a meeting, the chair of the commission participated in that meeting by phone. The county was there, DEQ was there. Let's let Envirotech get in the utility business. And the county doesn't ever want to be in the sewer business, so we'll keep letting Envirotech contract operate everything the county owns, and we'll build some mass and have a successful sewer business. Well, elections happen, managers retire, young people come in, and all of a sudden the county said, we want to be in the sewer business. And then they absolutely failed in the sewer business and have looked toward contract operation again and all kinds of stuff. But they don't want anything to do with Ocean Hill. They're happy to have the tax base and the tax revenue, but they don't want anything to do with it.
Commissioner Hughes, if I can add something, the water system was privately owned before the county took it over. Currituck County took it over in 2002, 2003, but they were not capable of taking the wastewater system. So wastewater system was taken over by Envirotech.
Okay, well, I really just want to get this all on record. I know we're piling on for this particular system, but I think this is an issue that you're dealing with, Chuck, unfortunately, in various places. I will add, as far as the eligibility for grants, low interest, HUD, our framework and structure is set up so that we do provide, we being the state of North Carolina, ample assistance for local governments. So for the folks that are in that system, they're the only way they're going to have eligibility to any kind of public assistance is if the county plays a part. Now, it's interesting to hear Commissioner Tucker's, kind of sentiments on that, but I just wanted to say that we have the one group that is eligible for state assistance for when there's a public good that has gone bad, which is this situation. They are sitting on the sidelines. So, if ever there was a system that's broke, it seems like we're in the middle of it.
Okay, so I think Commissioner Levitas has a question, but we are here for an application for an emergency operator. I think that a lot of important points have been made about things that the commission and the public staff can consider outside of this docket. But we'll stay focused on the emergency operator application and consider the other points outside the docket. But do you, Commissioner Levitas, if you have something specific to this application?
I think, Jermaine, because in part, I'd like to understand more about how we got in this mess with the goal of having more confidence that we will have a path out of this mess. So can you say a little bit more about the root cause of these problems? This is not just massive noncompliance, but every sort of noncompliance that you could imagine, from effluent limitations, equipment not being maintained, groundwater violations, inadequate irrigation field. So how do we get here?
I believe, is this a question for Mr. Freed, Commissioner Levitas?
Well, either if the public staff has insight or for Mr. Freed, because I do want to understand, I mean, for example, presumably part of the problem is inadequate funding, not just incompetence or neglect. And so I'm trying to understand how we get in a situation of, if I'm correct that this system is inadequately funded, why do we wait to the point of collapse and all of this non-compliance before we come in with a plan to fund it properly?
I've been trying to figure a way out for 4 or 5 years. And every time I try to make a move on something, the door gets closed for some other reason.
So Commissioner Levitas, I will say, you know, part of this is some of our utilities that were granted CPCNs under sort of an expectation that they had the potential to have the capabilities, that technical, that managerial, and those financial capabilities, that over a period of time, it proves that they do not necessarily have all three of those. And so part of that is going to have to be diligent monitoring by both the public staff and the commission of the utilities that are granted CPCNs. And then we will be faced with a very challenging question of when to intervene and how to intervene. Is that under 6242 to order them to make improvements if there are physical deficiencies? Is it 62-116 or 118 to appoint an emergency operator? Or is it the extreme of, you know, forcing a rate case? Because that's part of the financial component. If rates can't support, and we're seeing in annual reports that they're suffering losses, is that a red flag to the point that we force them to increase rates? Now, the public staff struggles with that as the consumer advocate between that rate dynamic and quality of service. We want both, right? We want as low as possible rates reasonably, but we also want sufficient service for our customers that we represent. And so, you know, to get here, I think there's also something that happens outside of our vision, sort of hidden, and that is ultimately asset purchase agreements that are never brought to light, but they bind up an owner unbeknownst to us unless it is disclosed to us. I don't know if it darn near needs to be a part of the annual report. Do you currently have a pending asset purchase agreement? I mean, it is ridiculous that our owners get tied up into deals that they can't then escape. And so then they're held to the will of a buyer, and a seller has no motivation to invest in the system because that ultimately cuts into their bottom line if they are able to sell it. And so that's partially how I think we get here. Again, we are trying to be more proactive. We're trying to take an active review of annual reports. We are trying to create that exchange of information with DEQ. So then we can see symptoms earlier and take that hopefully preventative intervention to avoid the extreme situations like this. Will we be able to prevent every single one? Probably not. I'll tell you, right now we're trying to deal with the worst of the worst. So you're going to see more of these. Hopefully, once we get through that batch, then we can focus on that preventative care. But we are, you know, accounting is doing accounting reviews of multiple years of annual reports. We are trying to build that relationship. So there's a multitude of factors. You know, some of our private utilities also have multiple business interests. And so what's your focus? We really need our public utilities their focus to be providing utility service. And I hope that's a consideration in future CPCNs.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I think, you know, Commissioner Tucker's point, what you're speaking to is the need for earlier intervention, right? But I think picking up on Commissioner Hughes's point, there's something that went wrong here on the front end from the very beginning, including the fact apparently that the irrigation disposal field was not under legal control. And I'm not sure how DEQ allows that to happen to grant the permit. But on our side, in granting a CPCN at the front end and rates are getting established at the front end, it would appear that the rates were grossly inadequate at the beginning to allow for the proper operation of the system. And so I'm trying to figure out how you avoid these problems on the front end rather than coming in this emergency situation.
Yeah, I mean, rate review is a challenging, I will say ownership is also an interest of the commission. And that's where we have pushed for in a transfer or in a new CPCN where they haven't yet gained control, that there be an ordering paragraph that requires the filing of those documents. Because we want that whole loop to be closed, that you have everything you're supposed to. Now that also takes diligence of, did they file it? Do we have a record that they have proper ownership and control? If not, we're going to need the commission to take action and intervene and help resolve that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Junis, thank you for stepping up and answering all these questions. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank
Thanks so
you.
much. I can give a couple more.
Yes.
Okay, so now we move on to public staff item number 3.
Let's move on to the easier ones now,
Yes.
hopefully. Item number 3 is docket number W218 sub 608. Aqua North Carolina filed an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to provide water utility service to Knott Farm in Wake County and for approval of rates. The public staff has reviewed the application and recommends that the commission issue the proposed order granting franchise and approving the rates.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion from the commission? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. We'll move to public staff item number 4.
Item number 4 is the W354 sub 443 Carolina Water Service of North Carolina filed an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to provide water and sewer utility service to Courtyard at Lake Davidson in Ardell County and for approval of rates. The public staff has reviewed the application and recommends that the commission issue the proposed order granting franchise and approving the rates.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion?
One question.
Okay, Commissioner Tucker?
Since I've been here, I questioned the amount of bonds that's recommended by public staff. Previously with Aqua, it's 25,000, and then I'm reading under number 12 that I guess we're looking at a $75,000 bond for Courtyard.
Yes, sir.
Why the deviation? Why isn't Carolina Water got a $25,000 bond versus, I know they got 4 million, but in bond surety, but what is
So this,
the data that's used to determine why the bond's higher than the other?
okay, for this one, sir, Mr. Tucker, we had, the commission had issued a temporary operating authority for this system, end of December, I believe. And it has multiple engineered option system constructed, I think 9 different systems to serve this wastewater system on the wastewater side.
Okay.
And then there's the public water system. So when we issue the TOA with all the uncertainties of EOP permitted systems, we recommended a bond of $75,000. So we are staying with what we had recommended under the TOA and allocating that same bond to the CPCN to go here. And plus, this also serves water and sewer utility, not just one utility. That was also a factor in the total amount of bond consideration.
So just as a follow-up, the bond is established based on what? The size of the system, the multiple systems that are involved under a system grant?
Complexity of the, yes,
Right.
complexity of the system and also the number of types of systems. Like if you just have water, the minimum general statute requirement is 25,000, but here you have 2. Plus you have the EOP permitted wastewater system, which are 9 of them already constructed with the disposal field. So because of the complexity of the system, is what we also consider in terms of bond determination.
Very well. Thank you for that response. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now, public staff item number 5.
Good morning. Lindsay Darden, Engineering Manager of the Public Staff, Water, Sewer, Transportation, and Telephone Division. Presenting item number 5 today, it's docket number W-354, sub 447. Carolina Water filed a motion for temporary operating authority and approval of interim rates, requesting temporary operating authority to provide sewer utility service to the Vista at Blacksmith Run subdivision. The public staff has reviewed the motion and recommends that the commission issue the proposed order granting Carolina Water temporary operating authority and approving the interim rates.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Darden. So we now have before us the minutes of the March 10, 2025 staff conference for approval. Is there a motion?
Approval of adopting the minutes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The minutes of the March 10, 2025 staff conference have been approved. Is there any additional business for the commission? Okay, seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.